everybody. It's really an honor and a blessing to be able to come here and give my testimony today because, see, I grew up in this church. I grew up on this hill right beside the church, and even though at the time not many of my family came to church, me and I had a little brother and two cousins, we would walk ourselves here to this church, and we'd come here every Wednesday and everything. We had a little choir. We would go around places singing. Back then, Ruth-Ann's mom, Clella, she was here, and in my teen years, they had a big thing at Pine Mountain Settlement School, and I would go there and I would teach Bible schools, and we would have little Bible schools here. And so even though my family really didn't come to church with me, I come up and I grew up here in this church, but I don't know, it's like something inside me was missing, and the older I got, I kind of veered away from God and the church, and I had a lot going for me. Like when I grew up, I grew up with both my parents. My dad worked in the coal mines, and we built a little store right around this curve, and I helped my mom run the store. I had a papa. He spoiled me rotten. He bought me pretty much anything that I wanted. I had anything that I wanted growing up, and like in high school, I placed second place in state in future problem solving. I was captain of the cheerleading team. I signed a modeling contract when I was 17 and done pageants. I had a lot going for me, but I kind of had a wild streak to me too. And I ended up getting pregnant my senior year, and I moved out on my own and had a baby. I did finish school, but I was living on my own my senior year, and I started getting kind of a little wild. I had my baby. I had Courtney, and I don't know. Me and her daddy, we was married for about 8 years, and we started having problems. And he ended up getting drug court, and he went to jail and had to pull a little time. And while he was in jail, I left him, and we got a divorce in February of 2009. He ended up getting out of jail, and we still talk and be close, but on April the 21st of 2009, my mom, she found my little brother murdered. And it was a real bad deal. It was real surreal, and we didn't know who did it at first. Those about 3 weeks went by. We had no clue who killed him. I remember I was so scared because, me and him was really close. We was really tight growing up. He was my best friend, my only brother, and like at night, I wouldn't even, I would turn all the fans off and everything at night because I'd be afraid somebody was going to come after me. Whoever killed him, surely, I was right by his side every day. Surely they would come for me too, but detectives, they kept coming and questioning me, interrogating me a lot, and I could about tell by the way they was talking, they was suspecting my ex-husband. And it's just so happens 3 days before my brother was murdered, another guy was murdered down Confluence, and I could about tell by the way the detectives was talking that they suspected him, but I knew in my heart it couldn't be him. He couldn't have done it, and he sure couldn't have killed my little brother because they was very close. They was friends. My brother pretty much lived with us, the whole time we lived together, and I just knew it couldn't be him. I told detectives I was crazy, and I'd go tell him, I'd go and let him know what. I was like, man, the detectives are thinking you done this. Can you believe this? But come to find out, 3 months later, it was actually on my birthday, they finally made an arrest. And it was my ex. It was my ex-husband. They arrested him, and it was just a real shocker to me. It tore me up inside. How could he do that? He never did own up to it, but I don't know. It just tore me apart inside. I would relive every moment, everything that he said and done. It just really tore me apart. He was the shoulder that I went and cried on throughout this whole thing, and then he ended up being the one that actually done it. It took about 2 or 3 years for him to have a trial, but he was convicted of it. Come to find out there was DNA evidence, so there was no denying it. And they give him 25 years for my brother, 25 years for the other guy that he murdered, and 10 years on top of that for robbery. Like I said, I just took it hard. I felt like I was the one to blame. I was the one that brought him to my family, and then my little brother ended up dead because of it. And then we had this daughter, and she didn't just lose her uncle, but she lost her daddy. And, it just tore the family apart, really. After that, I kind of started leaning more to drugs, to deal with all the pain and stuff. I started dabbling around, and I don't know, it just started getting a lot worse. But the farther I would go, the more drugs I would do, and the harder drugs I would do. And then finally, about 3 years passed, and I finally, I got remarried. And we had been married for 2 weeks, and I went to town one day, and I come back, and I found him dead. And he would go, he was on the needle. I didn't do that at this point, and I didn't know what to do. He caught me gone and had a friend give him a shot, and there was a lot more in it than what he thought. And his friend had robbed his body and took off and left him laying there, and I found him, and like a lot, they said they couldn't do nothing about it because it was too hard to prove it was an overdose. And, after that, I was like, I had the mentality, if you can't beat them, join them. So I got on the needle too, and it snowballed real fast from there. I mean, I went real fast, out of control. I found another man, and we ended up having 3 kids together. And I was so lost in addiction, I ended up losing them every one to social services. I got in a real bad place mentally, like I really didn't want to live, but I knew that you weren't supposed to kill yourself, so I would do like crazy little things, trying to get myself killed, and I didn't care. I had a notebook, and I wrote a letter to my family for when I die, and like I had my funeral planned out and everything. I knew that I wasn't going to last much longer. Well, I was still in this relationship, and sometimes when we would get into it, I would run off, and there happened to be a little church not far from where we lived. And one night I went down to that church, and I was thinking, I felt at peace there, and I finally prayed to God. I was like, please, help me or take me out of this world. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I wrote a letter to God, and I placed it on a picnic table with a rock on top of it, and I left. And it wasn't 2 weeks later that I was picked up on a warrant that had been out for 2 years. I've been running from it for 2 years, and like I said, I was in bad shape. I was in and out of jail, but I got picked up on that warrant, and I don't know, it was just like a big relief when I did. At this time, my daughter, she was over the age of 18, and whenever I got put in jail, she went to the judge, and she was in the process of having me in Casey law, sent off to treatment. And where I had picked up extra charges when they arrested me, they're like, listen, why don't you just go to rehab and she won't have the case law? I'm like, well, okay, I will. So they sent me off to around, it was on the West Virginia-Kentucky border, an awesome place. It's called ARC, Addiction Recovery Care. And I don't know, I ended up going to the original one that first started ARC. It's called Karen's Place. And I'm telling you, up on this mountain, you could really feel the presence of God. I tried to fight it for a little while, like first week or two. I was sitting off long term. First few weeks, I was just kind of, mad to myself. I didn't want to hear what they were saying, but then what they started saying was making a lot of sense to me. And they would take us to church and stuff. It was the faith-based rehab. And it was there that I opened myself back up to God. I found him again. And it was there that I ended up getting saved. And a few weeks later, they was doing baptism. It was called a place called the Stinking Creek. I'll never forget. And I'll tell you, there's nothing stinking about that creek that day. I hit that water, and when I come up, it was just, I don't know, it was a peace that I've never felt before in my life. I chased this feeling so many years with drugs and alcohol and all this stuff, but when I found God, that was the feeling that I had been looking for all them years. There's just nothing to describe it. I ended up coming back and getting out of rehab, and I done good for a few months, but after about 2 or 3 months, I ended up getting around the wrong people, the wrong places, and I broke over, and I got high again. But the very first night that I got high, what is the chances that I would get arrested and put back in jail? And I just knew, I was sitting there in that jail cell once again, and I just knew that God was the one that set me down in that jail cell. You know, He will do sometimes for us what we can't do for ourselves. And this time they let me sit all winter. I refer to it the winter I hibernated. Because I sat there all winter long, and when I finally got out, they finally let me out on drug court, and the drug court was really a blessing to me. It gave me the structure that I needed. It had that over my head and kept me clean. I went through it, no problems, no sanctions whatsoever. And I remember, like, I didn't have a vehicle. I had so many DUIs that they made me do the DUI classes for a solid year. But I tell you what, I walked every day to drug test. I walked to work. And I found a job, and I walked for a straight year until I saved up enough money and got my license back, and I had cash to go buy me a vehicle. And I graduated drug court, like I said, no problems, and I've been clean ever since. God has blessed me so much between now and then. I now have friends that will pray with me. I got my best friend back here, Pam. I got friends now that will pray for me instead of praying on me. And they show up for me, and couldn't ask for better friends. Pam, she also did drug court and stuff, and it's amazing the way God will open doors. Now we both work for the court system and work to help other addicts that have gotten in trouble and are trying to get clean. She's working over drug court. I'm the peer support where the drug court participants get their counseling and stuff. And I don't know, it's just really amazing how far God has brought me and what He can do, and I can't praise Him and thank Him enough. And that's all I got. Thank you all.